What's going on? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are finally going to make some progress on our Atlas 4200 swapped GTO. It's been a long time coming, but I'm proud to announce some updates and show you guys what we got going on. So originally we were going to go with a T56 from an F-body, and we knew we wanted to go fast and we knew we wanted to make a lot of power. Then stock T56 really isn't going to cut it. In a lighter car, a stock T56 can probably handle 700-800 horsepower, but you're really going to be on some borrowed time. So we were fortunate enough to find this level 5 Tick Performance TR6060 that's actually meant for a GTO. In addition to that, we have a QuickTime bell housing, which is an SFI certified scatterproof bell housing. We have a monster triple disc clutch, and to get all this behind the Atlas, I'm super excited to show you guys a new product that's recently come out from Fabbot Engineering. So we have this really sick CNC machined adapter, and this thing is super nice. Now this adapter runs about $700-ish odd dollars for the upper half and the flex plate slash flywheel adapter, and then it's an additional cost for the lower half, which we actually do have right here. So if you would like to go fully around your bell housing and maintain a sealed bell housing, then you can do that. And one thing that's kind of nice is with QuickTime, they give you a complete option to seal the underneath. So technically we really don't need it, but I went ahead and went all out anyway because I just figured why not. We will be using a modified version of the Atlas oil pan, so we'll still have the 2 bolts lower. Now for the purposes of this video and showing you guys how we're gonna adapt it and getting everything installed, I don't have the oil pan on, so I'm just gonna be using the upper portion. But I wanna show you why this adapter is so cool. Now granted, it is a lot more expensive than the Atlas Industry adapter, and I really do like the Atlas Industries adapter, the M-Tech adapter. I like the M-Tech flywheel, but what's really unique about this setup is they give you this ring gear and this adapter kit. They give you some ARP hardware to mount the, I think they call it like the back plate first, but what this does is it converts the back of the Atlas engine to accept any LS clutch. So with the M-Tech flywheel, what I was gonna have to do is, you're limited to a 10.5-inch clutch disc, and there are some that can handle some power, but the options that you have are just, they're funneled down, unfortunately. With using this, you can use any LS clutch, any LS flywheel. So for a drag and drive car like we're building, we want to be able to have the option to quickly replace stuff. The flywheel is a huge thing. So let's say we smoke the flywheel by some chance, like we got to take it out, something happens. I'm pretty much done out of an event in that case, because like the Atlas crank pattern is very unique. Unless the flywheel just simply needs to be machined and I can find a place to resurface it, we'd be fine. But in this instance, I could really just go to an auto parts store and get a cast iron LS flywheel, which it's hit or miss if they're in stock, but it's a lot easier to get than it is a specific Atlas flywheel. And most other people in drag and drive events, someone may actually have something. The triple disc clutch is huge. So this entire setup, right, is rated for about 900 foot-pounds of torque and 1,100 horsepower, which is perfect because that's what we want to make. We want to make 4-digit power. But so getting into this ring gear, now it's worth saying before I go into detail, I will link the Fabbot video below. They go into detail for this whole setup. I'm just showing you guys how to actually get this behind the motor. I want to show it to you, like actually getting mounted. The application is legitimate. It's awesome. The pilot bearing, the pilot input shaft bearing engagement is spot on. It's awesome. So what we're gonna do is bolt this to the crank. And what this allows you to do, and another reason that the adapter is so thick, is it allows you to use the stock Atlas starter. So again, I think it's like a Timken starter or Tilton, which we do run on the Trailblazer. It's great, but in the event, you know, I were to have issues with that starter, I may be able to get one pretty quick from Summit, but a stock Atlas starter is on the shelf anywhere. Like they're dirt cheap. I actually have a new one in the box down here that somebody gave to me, and I didn't think I'd be able to use it, but I actually will use it now because they give you the opportunity to use the stock starter. So it's allowing you to maintain a lot of the stock parts which are readily available, and I just think it's awesome. So you'll bolt this to the crank, and now your stock starter will start this flywheel, this flex plate, whatever you want to call it. And then we will bolt this adapter to the outer ring here. And now this piece here, you know, imagine that you just cut the back of an LS crank out. That's what this is. So you still have the two options for an inner or an outer pilot bearing. And if you're not familiar, the pilot bearing that you use is based on the depth of your input shaft with the bell housing on. So there's a great link that Granis Racing has. I know he's been in the news a lot lately, and unfortunately I feel really bad that he wrecked during World Cup. So, you know, go support him. He's already announced that he's gonna give all the proceeds to his merchandise to the guy that he wrecked into, Vlad. So, you know, Granis Racing has a great link on which pilot bearing you should use. So I already took the measurement on this, and essentially if your input shaft sticks out between 3/4 of an inch to like 1 1/4 or 1 1/2 inches, you're gonna use the inner, the smaller outer diameter pilot bearing, which we have here from Dorman. So we're gonna press that into, I'll probably press it from the back side here, which is kind of cool because you don't have that option on the LS. You have to press it here because you're pressing it into the crank. And that is where the end of the input shaft will ride. But if you have, you know, maybe less of an extrusion from the bell housing out, then you would use this outer one here. But once this is bolted to the crank, this will bolt to here, and now essentially you have converted the end of your Atlas crank into the end of an LS crank. So this is what allows you to run any LS flywheel and clutch combination. So as you guys have already been told through this video, we are going to be running the triple disc monster clutch and flywheel kit. And I'm gonna get this all bolted up. I will kind of talk through it as I do it, but essentially I'm just gonna time lapse this because, you know, I don't want to fumble through this and I don't want this video to be 20 minutes long. But yeah, ARP stud or ARP bolts for the flex plate, and then they give you the hardware to bolt this to that. And then what they don't give you is they do not give you the hardware to bolt your new LS flywheel to this. So that is right here, standard LS ARP hardware. I'll put the part number down in the link below, but this is ARP 330-2802. And there's 6 flywheel bolts here. You can use the stock ones as well, which I have there. I am gonna use the stock ones for this purpose. I actually have a set of ARP Atlas flywheel bolts as well. Now, most of the Atlas flywheels, or sorry, most of the Atlas cranks have like a fine thread thread pitch in the back of the crank, which is 531013. But there are a few that have coarse threads, so keep that in mind if you're doing that, and don't just go ahead and put a fine thread crank bolt in and then drive it home with an impact, because there is a chance you have a coarse thread crank. It is very rare, but they are out there. Now, I thought it was on earlier motors that the coarse thread was there, but this motor is from like an 03 or 04. This is a first generation motor. The motor I have behind the camera is from an 02, the very first year. And then the motor that's in my Trailblazer is from the very last year. All of them have fine thread ARP hardware. So I don't know at what point they used the coarse thread thread pitch in the crank, but just know it is there. So I'm gonna get this bolted up and show you guys the process. And then once we get it bolted up, I'll show you the pilot engagement. And yeah, and I'm pretty excited. This is a huge move in the right direction. I can't tell you how excited I am. So let's get this done.
All right, so the first bolts that I used that I said I had, they're the same thread pitch. They're actually from a Coyote motor, but come to find out that they were slightly a different length. So you can see here, once I got tightened it, I was wiggling the flex plate because I realized it wouldn't bottom all the way out. So for the sake of this video, I just put it on there. I didn't need it to be tight, but I also realized that Fabbot had actually sent me 2 of the 10 bolts here. They were the wrong thread pitch, so fortunately they sent me out the right ones, but they're probably in the bins right next to each other when they packaged them. They just kind of got cross-contaminated. Here, putting on the actual adapter, pretty straightforward. They give you a bunch of socket head cap screws that go into the adapter. Now here is, again, one of my favorite parts is using the stock starter. They do give you this little adapter, and that is to center the starter itself. Now, the starter I had mentioned I had was actually not the right starter, so I got a little lesson here. If the starter has these little notches around it, it is different than the one that doesn't. So I couldn't get it seated all the way, like it wouldn't pull up. The little shank wouldn't pull up. So here I was sending pictures to Fabbot and asking them about this. So I don't know if maybe he'll create a version that doesn't have that provision, or maybe it can accept both. But there's 2 years, I think 06, 07, have a different starter. It's weird. I don't know why you would do that. So next up, it was time to install my pilot bearing. Originally, I said I was going to press it to the back, but I had already bolted it on, and I kind of forgot to press it in beforehand. So I just used a socket, drove it home. Pretty standard, same exact way you would install it on an LS motor. Now, I made a pretty crucial mistake here prior to putting on the flywheel, and this is where you would normally put on the scatter shield that goes between your block and the SFI bell housing, the QuickTime bell housing, and you can't get it on once you put the flywheel on because it's got a really small circle on the back, just big enough for the flywheel to allow it to spin. So obviously for this video it's not going to be on. I started putting on the flywheel, I took it apart. It does take a little bit of effort to put it back together because there's a bunch of pieces. So where I'm at, the reason there's a big gap here is I was working on my workbench, was on the other side of the shop, and I also had to locate my 26 spline input shaft tool so I could keep the disc centered while tightening down the clutch, because obviously when you're putting this in the car, you need to keep the disc centered, so when you put your transmission in, well, I guess all 3 discs in this case are tightened. That's where I realized I didn't put the scatter shield on, and here I'm just putting on the bell housing with a few bolts because I don't really need to do everything. I think maybe I tightened most of them, I don't remember. And then from here, it's pretty much home free. But prior to putting the transmission in, I located the factory starter out of my 09 Trailblazer and decided, let me put that in, and sure enough, that fixed the problem. So now it's time to essentially get the transmission in, and it's pretty straightforward, right? This was really easy to do because it's on the ground. I had to put the transmission onto a little ATV floor jack that I had. That way I could jack it up and not, move it around and hold it, with my back bent over. I already have some back issues, so didn't want to really go down that path. So here you can see we're putting the trans onto the jack, jacking it up, getting it perfectly centered, kind of mimicking a trans floor jack if I were on a lift. And then this is where, you know, the alignment comes in handy. You just get it lined up, it goes straight in, and it was just awesome. Like it slid all the way in through all three disc, and then tightening the transmission, and again, home free. At this point, we are fully mated Atlas TR6060 triple disc clutch.
All right, check this setup out. This thing is sick. And honestly, like, I couldn't be happier. It's so nice and refreshing just to bolt all this up to the motor and not have to do any math or any engineering, because Fabbot's already done that. Like, they did their due diligence. They did all the research. Like, it works. Putting this transmission in, getting it in, it's a breeze. It's no different than putting a manual transmission into any other car that it came with from the factory. There are a couple little things I noticed, but I mean, that's just because we're running this pretty aggressive setup. So the hardware that they give you from Fabbot for the bell housing bolts, they have a shoulder on them, and because the QuickTime bell housing, the mating surface is so thin compared to like a factory bell housing, which is probably about double this thickness, they'll actually bottom out in the threads before they start clamping. So I don't know if he's gonna start offering that as an option or not. I did mention it to him. Either way, like it's pretty simple hardware. I got a couple of bolt bins from Nut and Bolt, and I just went and grabbed some hardware and bolted it in. Down here, you know, this is just a common issue with the QuickTime stuff. It gets so close. He does give you the long hardware that goes through the dowel. You could still use that if you want, but again, on the QuickTime bell housing, like, this kind of sticks through a little bit. So I'm probably just not gonna use this. But yeah, I mean, it's super, super sick. So one thing, again, like factory starter. So I tried to use this new starter that I mentioned, but I didn't know that 05 and 06 starters are different. And I think that might be what this is from. Some of the starters, or most of them, have these like little indents all around it, and this one didn't. So this one would actually bottom out before it made contact with the adapter that he gives you. Now, this little adapter that he gives you is really just to maintain a center alignment. So it's a conical adapter. It keeps everything aligned, and then as you bolt this in, it just keeps it where it should be. But yeah, this is the factory starter out of my 09 Trailblazer, and it's bolted right up. I mean, it's freaking sick, dude. This is such a cool setup. And again, like, right now, I think it's safe to say this is probably the most aggressive clutch and transmission setup that's ever been bolted to the back of an Atlas motor. So I'm super excited to push forward with this and get it into the 05 GTO. And you know, we haven't really done many videos on the GTO since we first announced that we were building it, but that is not the same GTO we had the motor in. That's a way nicer one. We had an 04, this is an 05, already has a full fuel system. We have the carbon fiber cowl hood over there. There's a bunch of updates I want to get into that car, but I really wanted to show this first because next step is getting this into the car using the factory GTO crossmember. Since this is for a GTO, I can use the trans crossmember to locate it in the car, and then wherever the motor lands, that's where we're making the motor mounts. So I'm super, super pumped. Hopefully you guys like it. I mean, this is aggressive. Like, we're coming out swinging. I'm trying to make like the most aggressive, most powerful manual Atlas build to date. We're trying to crack 4 digits. We plan on bringing it to the Fuel Tech Hub dyno, and we plan on racing it sometime in the next year. I think it's going to take about a year to get it done. It's a long time, but I got a lot going on. Full-time job. I have 3 daughters now, so I can really do this when I get it. But If you guys want to stick around and follow along, I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that stuck around. Thanks for everybody's support. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you think that someone else might like it, give it a share. Really helps us out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.